Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to CCAC's presentation with the URA with High Growth Technology Programs. My name is Rena McCaskill, and I am one of the directors of enrollment here at the Community College of Allegheny County. We'd like to welcome you to today's event. At this time, I am going to introduce to you Dr. Jeffrey Thomas, who is our academic dean for mathematics, engineering, and the skilled trades. And he is going to talk to you about high growth technology programs that we offer here at CCAC.
Thank you very much. Can I see the slides, please? So here at CCAC, we work hard to make sure the programs that we offer you are the best programs for high-tech professions in the Pittsburgh area. If you look around the area, you know that there is a lot of technology companies in the Pittsburgh area and lots of opportunities to pursue employment, pursue careers in those technology areas. We have been working for a number of years in making sure that the programs we offer are the programs that will provide you the most opportunity in those areas. And I'm going to talk to you about some of those programs. And I'm going to focus in a couple of different areas. I'm going to focus on engineering related programs and information technology related programs. In both of these areas, we offer a state-of-the-art training and education that will prepare you either for a career in one of these areas or to transfer to a four-year institution where you can pursue those areas. You should be looking at a slide called engineering related programs now. So we have multiple engineering related programs, but I wanted to focus for a moment just on three: robotics, mechatronics, and computer-aided drafting. And these, we have some more general engineering programs as well, but these are ones that I think are really worth looking at and pursuing. The robotics is just what it sounds like, the use of robotics in a variety of areas across industry, across the country, how they work, how to get them to work, how to program them, how to maintain them, and so on. Mechatronics is a combination of electrical and mechanical engineering and is designed to really give you an idea of how the machines work, how they're programmed. So there's a strong information technology piece in that as well. And finally, the computer-aided drafting, or a CAD program. CAD is the basis of almost every engineering-related program you'll ever take. Almost every program is going to require you to have some knowledge of computer-aided drafting to help you navigate those particular areas and to become successful in those areas. Let's talk about information technology for a moment. Here at CCAC, we have a very unique program called Gaming and Simulation. Or actually, it's called Multimedia Gaming and Simulation. I like to shorten it to Gaming and Simulation. It is exactly as you would think it would be. It is a training to learn how to make games, make computer games. But at the same time, you're learning also how to make simulations. I always tell people that the gaming aspect of the program is the draw. That's what gets people interested. But the simulation is the part that's really going to help you grow and help you grow into a career, because simulation is something that's used in a variety of industries across the nation, including real estate and the medical profession, even in things like, automated cars. All of those things require some degree of simulation in order to operate successfully. And then in the data analytics is the collection of data and analysis of data to help inform decision making. A few years ago, you probably saw the Uber cars all over Pittsburgh with the mapping that they were doing and the LiDAR and the radar on those machines. Those were collecting data. They were collecting data about Pittsburgh streets, and they were collecting a tremendous amount of data. And that data had to be put into a format that could then be used by Uber in that case to program those self-driving cars. So, data analytics is incredibly important. You come across data analytics every day. Every day, if you go to Giant Eagle and you use your card, you're generating data, and it's data that the companies use. Business decisions are often made using data analytics. So corollary to that, and corollary to the other things that I've talked about here, are the AI programs. AI programs operate very heavily on a concept of engineering, computer engineering and electrical engineering in particular. Information technology obviously is an important part of that, but also data analytics. So that artificial intelligence relies very heavily on all of those things coming together in order to act, in order to do things that we want it to do, or we want it to do on its own. So all of these things come together. These are all things we teach here at CCAC. And even in the traditional skilled trades programs, you're going to find pieces of data analytics, you're going to find information technology, and you're going to find engineering. All of those things are really critical to even in a modern skilled trades program. Modern cars have sensors, they create data, they have computer chips. You may have seen that the Ford Mustang is not being produced right now because there aren't enough computer chips being created. So all of these things are important in a modern industry. And like I said, you can see it all over Pittsburgh. You see it, you saw it with Uber, you see it with Argo, you see it with Duolingo, Microsoft, Google. All of these companies have a big presence in Pittsburgh. So now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Dean Jolin.
Everyone, thank you, Dr. Thomas. It's a pleasure to be with you. My name is Dean Jolin. I'm an Executive Director of Workforce and Job Readiness, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about regional workforce and career opportunities in these fields. Next, please. The top 10 to top 20 occupations, that's always a big question that gets asked. So what are they? Well, if you take a search or conduct a search of the top occupations online and maybe use sites like Indeed, U.S. News and World Reports, Business Insider, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Best Schools, and more, you're going to notice a pattern emerging. One, you're going to see that specific occupations are not always consistent. So you may see one site lists in the top 20 very similar occupations, and in another site, it's not quite the same. And that could also differ by state, that could differ by region. But the other thing that you're going to notice is that occupations fall into top 5 categories. So regardless of what the specific occupation is, you're going to see that technology, healthcare, health aides and human services, the skilled trades, business management, marketing, accounting, statisticians, and data analytics are all among the top 5 categories for all these occupations. What links them all together? Technology. Regardless of any of these occupations, technology is really important. Whoever thought that we would have administrative assistants focused on Excel sheets or doing kind of minor data analytics or potentially adding information onto social media sites? That wasn't thought of. Who would have thought they'd be scheduling Zoom meetings like the one that we're having now? Those were all things that weren't anticipated. Technology is infiltrating every single occupation, regardless of whether we like it or not. And it's at the top of the list in terms of top 10 to top 20 occupations. Next slide, please. You may have seen this before. This comes from the Allegheny Conference, but a lot of information that we use at CCAC is in relation to what the Allegheny Conference provides. So one of those things was an inflection point report that they established as a group, and that is one tool, but it provides additional information on what they believe, collecting all the data, that the region's most pressing workforce demands will be based on population growth, based on retirement, risk of automation, and more. The full report is available, and they actually have a newer report to kind of review what they had initially thought, but it's an excellent resource to kind of think about what the workforce demands are for the region. At the same time, they just released a website called Pittsburgh Next is Now. And on that website, you're going to see the key industries. In fact, the ones that we're talking about tonight or trying to highlight, such as artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, energy, life sciences and health, manufacturing, transportation and logistics, and robotics. The links are provided here in the presentation. And so you can go to those at any time, or you can find them pretty easily online. But, you know, CCAC is drawing from this data and information, and it's used as a reference point for how we're making sure that we are providing programs that relate to the workforce needs of the region. Next, please. Filling the gap is a term that you may and may not have heard, but certainly in the past 5 years, I've heard it a lot, especially as it relates to this inflection point report. But the idea of if there's certain workforce needs, how are we going to fill them? As people retire, how are we going to fill those occupations? But as it relates to technology, that Next is Now website also has information on data related to these key industries. And this is just a sample of something that you could even send on social media. They have a talent toolkit, but Pittsburgh is for tech talent. We're third in the nation among smaller markets in attracting and growing talent. We had the highest increase in tech job postings in the country from May to June. And we're one of the top US cities for STEM professionals. Even though that's the case and that's emerging, one of the things is how we prepare individuals for these skills, because you can have certain attributes or soft skills that you develop on your own. You know, maybe that's because you're punctual. Maybe that's because you are very observational, things of that nature. It's just something that's a talent of yours or connects. But the other piece of it is specialization and how you just develop those skills. And if you look at the circled item there, you can see that 71% of that particular occupation, the employers are looking for specialized skills. That doesn't diminish the fact that those baseline skills are, you know, not important, but it does say that certain training is necessary for these occupations. Obviously, at the top, you can see healthcare support occupations. Can you imagine a nurse that had really great soft skills but couldn't handle all the technical skills that were available? I don't know if I'd want that to be my nurse exactly. You know, so we got to think about that and that piece as training in order to fill these gaps and also filling these positions in an emerging market. Next, please. So CCAC has a department that I am in charge of called CCAC Workforce and Job Readiness. It used to be called Career Services. Our job is to help students understand their transferable skills and experiences, understand where they can develop these skills and experiences, and then how to translate that to make sure that employers understand that they have these in order to get the job that they're seeking in the future. So again, the first step is helping them to identify those skills and experiences and understanding what these employability skills are. The next step with our department is, number one, focusing on that job outlook. A lot, you know, the exploratory phase, or is this a good fit for me? Is this the right occupation for me to pursue? Do I have the skills that someone would be looking for? And of the skills that I have, what else do I need to get there? Our department focuses on job readiness and making sure that you understand how those skills, again, transfer. Application assistance. Some people, you know, hey, if you go into a local restaurant, the application may be paper. Maybe there's barely an application at all. They're willing to hire you. Well, for professional jobs, there's a much larger process that's involved, having a really good employer-ready resume and cover letter, having your application materials together, understanding how to provide your references, providing other information that may be relevant to the job in order to land that interview. So we help with the job search assistance and also have a large focus on employer connections, building those bridges between the employers and what they're seeking and what the students are focused on and are committed to getting into as it relates to a future career. Next slide, please. So how does someone explore these, you know, career traits or assess their skills and what might be a good focus? Well, CCAC purchased a product called Career Coach. Career Coach is actually accessible to any prospective students as well as current students, graduates. It's really open to anyone. It's out there on our website. And I'm going to delve into this a little bit deeper in a moment when I share my screen. But just to give you an idea, you can see that you can take a career assessment. It's a 6 or a 60 question assessment, and it'll give you kind of a benchmark for some of the career traits that you have and then how it applies to different occupations. You can browse careers, you can browse programs. They also have specific information on how you can build a resume or get connected to our career counseling office. Next slide, please. Our office provides numerous services, but the one I wanted to also bring up is that you have access, anyone, to our job search manual. We review this every year, so if someone's going through a job search process, they want to understand what they need to do to be most prepared, whether it's they're starting in one part of the cycle where they're just getting started, or they're just focused on how do I apply to positions, or maybe they got the job and they're wondering about what the good work habits are. But the job search manual is one way to handle and kind of review after an exploratory phase what the next process or phase is as it relates to entering the workforce. And you can contact us anytime at jobready@ccac.edu. I'm going to take a moment to briefly share my screen just to show what Career Coach does, and then I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Sharman, who's going to go over the enrollment and admissions process. So just give me one moment here. Let me take this down. That was my backup for the presentation. Okay, so this is Career Coach. This is the interface here. Again, you can take an assessment. If I was to click on this, I'm logged in, so it's already telling me what my assessment matches are. If you didn't, it would basically ask if you want to take a really quick 6-question assessment or a 60-question assessment. It would probably take about 5 minutes for a 60-question assessment. But I can browse careers and browse programs, but I've logged in, so I actually have a profile. The one nice thing about the profile and having taken the assessment is that it gives me my top 3 traits, which I can always download. And I can also see, if I wanted to, my career matches, but I've already done that. So what I've done based on tonight's discussion is thought about the programs that Dr. Thomas mentioned. And if I look at each of these programs, I'm able to not only get some information, but also get access to starting my application, looking at the tuition information, or just the program in general. So I'm just going to click on Data Analytics Technology. And you'll see here that it is saved. There's the information again mentioned about how to get to the program, tuition, or starting my application. But then it gives me the different related careers. That percentage right here is based upon what my results are on the career assessment. So a 43% match isn't really high based on it, but it doesn't mean I can't go into that profession. It's just ranking the percentages. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But you can see here for business intelligence analyst, it'll tell you the median salary. It'll give you information about what the level of attainment for education that you should focus on. And you can see that many students especially don't know that if I'm a business major, there's so many different names for occupations in business. And even like a marketing major, there's so many different aspects of marketing. They just think, well, I'm a marketing major. They don't think about the careers or the different titles or names of things. So this is one way to explore it, and you can see the different matches. This one here is a pretty strong match for me, at least compared to the other numbers. So if I click on this, it's going to give me more information on annual job openings, the available programs that connect to it. And in addition to that, I can learn about the occupation. It'll give me daily tasks, again, the education, skills that the employers are looking for, both those hard skills that we talked about and the soft skills. I can look at the wages and if they're growing or what the trend is. I can look at employment, and the nice thing about this is not only does it show me kind of a chart as to how things are being posted, but it'll also give me the companies who have been posting jobs. And it'll give me an employment projection. So you can see that in 2020, there was a big drop. For whatever reason, I don't know, but it is trending back upwards again for this field. And you can also see job titles. Again, believe it or not, you know, it used to be you could go to any bank and say, I want to be a teller. But for instance, at Dollar Bank, they might be looking for a teller, where at PNC, the same job is called a universal banking assistant. But you wouldn't know that unless you kind of explore the different titles. You can also see live job postings. So I could take a look and see who's hiring right now and what they're looking for within their job description. If I go back to that profile, I just want to show you another sample of, here's again, the careers. So I saved these matches based on the different programs that I thought about, and it gives me options here so I can continue to explore those further. So again, I just wanted to give everyone an idea of what that software does and how it could be useful for anyone who's exploring, looking at career traits, and how it links back and relates to these various programs and occupations. The last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Charmin is that CAD in particular is, if no one knows this, we are one of 2 providers of CAD education in this area, and our office has employers reaching out more often than not, and we can't get enough individuals to be studying CAD and to apply for these jobs. I've even had employers doing national searches for the Pittsburgh region for CAD. So if you know, again, of any students who that's a big focus, they like the blueprinting, they like drawing. And again, it's all computer aided and 3D modeling, but that's another wonderful career with a lot of promise. And so just wanted to mention that before I turn things over to Charmin. Thanks so much for your time, everyone.
Thank you. I'm Charmin Strauters, and I am going to be talking with you guys a little bit more about some of the other great things about CCAC so we can discover some of the convenient locations that CCAC has. At all 4 of these locations for our campuses and our 3 centers, CCAC offers degrees, certificates, diplomas, and transfer programs. Let's take a look at Allegheny campus. Allegheny campus is located on Pittsburgh's North Shore, which is close to PNC Park and Heinz Field. I'm sure we all know that. And they're preparing students for careers in culinary arts, music technology, graphic communications, criminal justice. Students are enrolled in some allied health programs. One of our most popular is our nursing program, up and coming as respiratory therapists, radiation therapists, and students are completing the biotechnology program. Let's discover Boyce campus. So, our new workforce development center, I'm sorry. It's so new that we're still working on it. So make sure you check back with us and keep an eye out, because there are going to be a lot of amazing opportunities. They're going to be close to the city for you to get to, right next to our Allegheny campus, on Allegheny campus on the North Shore. For our Boyce campus that is located in Monroeville, it's right by Boyce Park, and students there are studying allied health programs for physical therapist assistant, ultrasound, MRI scanning. They're doing CNA, phlebotomist, surgical technologist, and paramedics. Let's take a look at our North campus. Our North campus is about 12 miles north of Pittsburgh and McCandless. It's in our 1 square foot, over 100,000 square foot facility, and it houses our innovation lab for cybersecurity, data analytics, multimedia programming, simulation and gaming, virtual reality lab, a lot of the programs that Dr. Thomas talked to you about. Let's take a look at South Campus. So South Campus is right in the heart of West Mifflin, and students there are studying engineering, science, technology fields, manufacturing technology, CAD, as Dean mentioned, electric engineering, and studying theater. So let's take a look at some of our centers. Our Homewood Brushton Center houses our barber school. They also have students that are studying CNA. And it's definitely a high traffic area for dual enrollment students coming from Westinghouse during the school day that are taking classes at HBC. At our Braddock Center, we have students that have the opportunity to take a number of college classes that would be like math and English and the humanities and just some general electives. They're also doing community education courses and have some workforce job training there. At our Washington County Center, students are having the luxury of having an affordable tuition rate even outside of the county. They are doing business management, criminal justice, some of the pre-nursing courses that they have to take before they can apply to the nursing program. And our West Hills Center has our mechatronics lab, our robotics, electrical, automotive program, HVAC, welding, plumbing, all of our trades programs housed at the West Hills Center. For our virtual campus, gives our students the opportunity to take their classes anywhere. So you can finish some of our degrees and certificates and diplomas completely online. And then we still have a little bit more of a selection for students that want to start out maybe taking their classes online, but they would have a few that they would have to take on campus. Let's take a look at CCAC's 5 commitments. As you can see, that CCAC is committed to care for the whole community. They are focused on social justice, building that culture of equity, and funding what matters the most. Now let's take a look at why CCAC is one of the choices that nearly 3 adults in the greater Pittsburgh region are choosing to go to CCAC. As you can see, students are coming to CCAC and they're graduating debt-free. They're saving anywhere between $20,000 to $60,000. They're coming for our small classroom sizes and also for our amazing nursing program. Next slide, please. Also, that we have an extensive transfer opportunities. So CCAC students have opportunity to transfer to like nearly 50 different colleges and institutions. We average about 500 credits that students are able to transfer to that number of colleges and universities throughout. But we do have some special agreements with some of our local state colleges where you can take your entire associate's degree with you and then pursue your bachelor's degree. Kind of where we come in with that, you can save nearly $20,000 to $60,000 depending on when you start at CCAC. Next slide, please. Also, as I mentioned, at our Homeward Brushton Center and at all of our other campuses and centers, students are getting a jump start on their college transcript and taking advantage of that opportunity to take some classes that they can get out of the way, hopefully to come to CCAC, but also that they will be able to transfer to whatever university that they would choose to go to. And talking about some of our student success, academic achievements that we work so hard on by providing services, some of what you see right here. We have our student success coaches that work with students that may fall in line with some of our developmental coursework, and they're helping them and review their goals, explaining policies and procedures, and just making sure that they know where our tutoring services are for like the Math Cafe or the Learning Commons. We have our counseling services that could be for academic, for students that want to transfer, and as Dean talked about, our career counseling. We have our academic advising services. All new students are required to meet with an academic advisor before being able to register for classes, but we always recommend that students continue to go through that process and meet with an academic advisor before registering for any courses. Next slide, please. At the Community College of Allegheny County, you may be surprised, most are, but you shouldn't be, that we have really great clubs and organizations and student involvement. For our National Junior College Athletic Association, we have men's and women's basketball, bowling, cross-country golf, men's baseball, women's softball, some volleyball, and some intramural sports as well. A large number of clubs and organizations for our students to get involved in. One of the ones that's really worth noting is the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society chapters. They're award-winning. I think they have about 5 or 6 regional and a few international awards. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit more about how you can become a student at CCAC. Our enrollment steps include completing the online application, which is at ccac.edu. Our next step is to apply for financial aid. We do have someone here that's going to talk to you a little bit more about that financial aid process when I'm done. You also want to get your high school transcripts, or if you have attended any colleges, have those sent in to CCAC. And then we can determine if you would need to take any placement tests. It's a placement test. It's not an entrance exam. It doesn't decide whether or not you get to attend CCAC. We are an open institution, but it does ensure that we get you set up in the right math or English courses so that you can be successful. After you do all of those things, you'll be able to create your network ID, go to our welcome center so that you can meet with an academic advisor and get registered for classes. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, if you want to complete your CCAC application, you can go to ccac.edu. Any students that have any international needs or questions, they can contact our international office. As you can see, the email address and the phone number. Next, please. And as I mentioned, we do have Shannon that will be here to talk to you a little bit more and go in depth with you about the FAFSA, applying for financial aid, the school code, and answer any questions that you may have pertaining to that. For your transcripts that you'll want to get in high school or college, you'll want to have those sent into admissions@ccac.edu. We can accept your unofficial transcripts to begin with, but as you want to apply to your graduation or to your degree, we will need your official transcripts. Next slide, please. And any student that would want to take advantage of all the extensive transfer opportunities that I had mentioned, you'll want to make sure that you are filling out those applications for credit transfer, whether you are transferring those into CCAC for us to evaluate and determine whether or not they could be applied to a degree or whether you are planning to transfer your credits to another institution. Next slide, please. You can register for the placement test, as I mentioned to you before, that you would be taking this for math or for the reading or English. You would use all of the same information that you'll use to create your application. But once you complete your application, you will receive emails that will go into detail with you a little bit more about how to register for the placement test. Next slide, please. Then creating your network ID. It's kind of sent a little foreign to you right now if you haven't already completed an application and received like your acceptance email that kind of goes through a lot of these things. But just not to get confused, you will receive a student ID number that you will need to do pretty much everything at CCAC except register for classes, right? So that's where you'll be creating your network ID, just so that you don't get those confused. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, after you complete that and you get your acceptance email with that student ID number, then you'll want to visit our Welcome Center so that you can meet with academic advisors and they can get you kind of set up as to what to expect as you're freshly getting started onto your educational journey with CCAC. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, you will be meeting with an academic advisor. You will be doing that as of right now online in our virtual chat session. Once again, when you apply to CCAC and you get your acceptance email, you'll receive a link that we have included on this slide. But during those times that you'll be able to meet with an advisor so you can get registered for classes, talk about any academic programs that you may be interested in and other transfer opportunities. Next slide. And once you complete all of that and you get registered for classes, then you would want to, if you can make a payment plan depending on when you get registered. The earlier you get registered for the semester, it gives you more time to develop a payment plan that works out for you financially. And Student Accounts is more than happy to work with you on that. If you have any other questions, and like I said before, if you want to complete your application, that's at ccac.edu. You can reach us or me at admissions@ccac.edu, and that is the phone number for any questions that we can answer for you and then guide and direct you along the way. Next slide, please. Some of our upcoming events, we will be having our open house. Highly recommend if you would like to learn even more about CCAC and get an opportunity to meet with some of our student life, student engagement, learn more about specific programs and meet with advisors. You're going to get an opportunity to hear a little bit more about financial aid today, but it does give you a closer look and provides different opportunities and options for you to join different breakout sessions to learn about CCAC. We also have our enrollment information sessions that pretty much cover exactly what I went over today, but that would include afterwards you being able to, if you had specific questions about financial aid after completing your FAFSA, you'll be able to meet with someone. If you're having any issues with the application, any questions about placement testing, or if you want to meet with an academic advisor, you would be able to do so during the enrollment sessions. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to hand this over to Shannon so she can talk to you a little bit more about financial aid. Thank you.
Thank you, Charmin. Good evening. My name is Shannon Vaccaro, and I'm the Assistant Director of Financial Aid at CCAC. We're going to talk about some financial aid resources today, covering specific topics such as what is financial aid, applying for financial aid and important deadlines, funding sources to help with funding your education, and ways that the CCAC Financial Aid Department is here to help you along your journey. Next slide, please. First question that's typically asked is, what is financial aid? Financial aid is money that's going to assist you in funding your college education. Typically, financial aid is broken down into two types. The first type is gift aid. It's referred to as gift aid because typically you will not have to pay this money back upon completing your education. Some examples of gift aid are federal grants, such as a Pell Grant, state grants, such as a FIA grant, and various scholarships. The other type of financial aid is self-help aid. Typically, self-help aid is going to come through federal student loans. These are aid that does have to be paid back, plus interest. And another example is federal work study, which is opportunities for students to work on campus part-time in various departments and earn money. Next slide, please. How do you apply for that financial aid? The first step is to complete a free application for federal student aid, or otherwise known as FAFSA. You can complete an application for FAFSA for every upcoming academic year starting on October 1st each year at studentaid.gov. We tell all of our students that for the upcoming 2021-22 academic year to complete your FAFSA application by May 1st. And this is done in order to maximize your federal and state funding options that could be available to you. You can still complete the application after that date, but we stress the May 1st deadline. A couple things that you're going to need to know when you're completing your FAFSA and preparing to complete your FAFSA. You're going to need to know your social security number. If you have a driver's license, have that available. You're going to need to know the school code for where you want your FAFSA information sent to. There's a school selection tab of the FAFSA that's going to ask if you know the school code. You would say yes. And then the school code for CCAC is 003231. Another piece of information you're going to have when completing your FAFSA is financial information for student, and if parent information is necessary in the FAFSA, for the parent as well. For 2021-22 FAFSA, you're going to use 2019 financial information, such as your tax return and W-2s. The FAFSA, if there's a tool in the FAFSA called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. If you have the option to use that, please do, because what it does is it takes the information from 2019, your tax information directly from the IRS, and it's going to plug it into the FAFSA, and that financial information is going to be deemed as accurate. Any student that is a first-time applicant for FAFSA is going to need to create an FSA ID. An FSA ID just stands for Federal Student Aid ID. If a parent is required to put their information in the FAFSA as well, a parent will have to have their own separate FSA ID as well. And what the FSA ID is, it's your unique username and password. It acts as your login to the studentaid.gov website and also as your electronic signature for the FAFSA. Do not give your FSA ID out to anybody. Keep that in a secure location where only you're going to know where it is. If, when you're doing the FAFSA, you encounter a question or an issue, there's multiple options for you to be able to get assistance. The FAFSA has a live chat option. You can call 1-800-4FED-AID for assistance. You can also contact the CCAC Financial Aid Department for assistance as well. And we'll talk about ways you can do that at the end of the presentation. When you've got to the end of the FAFSA application, you want to make sure that you receive a confirmation page at the end. A lot of students and parents get to the end, save the application, and think they're done, and it never gets submitted or sent to any schools that you're interested in attending. So make sure you get that confirmation page at the end. And as long as you put CCAC on your FAFSA and have a completed application for admissions to CCAC, typically we will get your FAFSA application within 3 to 5 days of you submitting it. Next slide, please. A common question that we're always asked is, how much federal student aid can I get as a student? And our answer is, it depends. The FAFSA is going to determine your financial need and certain eligibility levels for aid based on the information that you provide in your FAFSA application. They're going to ask you questions such as who's in the household for the upcoming academic year, who in the household is going to college, and then the financial information for student and parent if necessary. And what they're doing is they're trying to determine your financial need, or what FAFSA determines is it's the expected family contribution. The expected family contribution in conjunction with the cost of attendance for attending schools is going to tell us if you're eligible for a federal Pell Grant and how much, federal student loans, potentially and how much. Not every student is going to be eligible for a Pell Grant after completing the FAFSA. But typically there are other options out there as well through loans and different things like that, if that wouldn't be an option. Some of the yearly maximum amounts that a student may be eligible for, and I stress that these are maximum amounts, not every student is going to be eligible for the maximum. For the federal Pell Grant for 2021-22, a school year, as a full-time student, meaning you are taking 12 or more credits for, let's say, both the fall and spring semester, would be $6,495. To receive the maximum Pell Grant, you have to be an extremely high financial need student. I do stress that. Another option for students, if you need more funding after a Pell Grant, or if you're not eligible for a Pell Grant, is for federal student loans. A maximum for a first-year dependent student for federal student loans, first-year dependent student meaning that you had to have parent information in your FAFSA, would be $5,500 total for the entire academic year. For a first-year independent student, meaning that you did not have to have parent information in your FAFSA, the maximum amount in federal student loans would be $9,500 total for the academic year. These federal student loans are not based on credit, so you do not have to worry about your credit worthiness as to whether or not you'd be eligible for these loans. Another option, if you needed more funding, would be a direct plus loan. This loan is specifically for parents of dependent students, and the amount that you could potentially get depends on the cost of attendance for the semester minus the amount of resources already received. And this loan is credit-based. So there is a chance that it may get approved. There's a chance that it may get denied. If it gets denied, then we encourage the student to contact us because there could be other funding options out there. And I do want to mention about a Pell Grant before we proceed, that if a student already has achieved a bachelor's degree, then they would not be eligible for a Pell Grant any longer. Next slide, please. Another funding resource that you could have would be state aid. The state aid resource for our students is through the FIA grant. That is the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency. Students would apply for a FIA grant at fia.org, or when you submit your FAFSA application and you get that confirmation page, there's going to be a link for the students to apply for a FIA grant at that time if from the FAFSA information they deem they may be eligible. It's important to note that FIA has a deadline of May 1st for many first-time applicants and all renewal applicants. So if you've done a FAFSA before, you would be considered a renewal applicant. For community college students, the actual deadline for a first-time applicant for FAFSA and FIA would be August 1st. Once you've done your FIA application, if you're eligible, they're going to send you directly a conditional award notification. And I stress that it's conditional because you have to meet certain conditions to actually be eligible for the aid that they are saying you may be eligible to get. And some of those conditions depends on the program and degree choice that you have chosen, your level of enrollment, meaning how many credits that you are registered for, and your progress towards your degree, such as how many credits that maybe you have completed during a previous year. A couple areas where you definitely would not be eligible for a FIA grant, even after doing an application, is if you were in a certificate or diploma program, you would have to be in at least an associate degree. You would have to be registered for at least 6 credits in each semester. If you're enrolled in less than 6 credits, you most likely would not be eligible for a FIA grant. Next slide, please. Another great funding source for Pittsburgh region students is the Pittsburgh Promise. The Pittsburgh Promise is going to provide eligible Pittsburgh public school graduates with up to $5,000 per year, $20,000 total over the course of your education to cover tuition, fees, and required book expenses. It's important to note that you have 5 years after graduating from high school to use Pittsburgh Promise funds if you're eligible. And to be eligible, some basic criteria: you have to be continuously enrolled in a Pittsburgh public school and a resident of the city since at least the beginning of 9th grade. And you have to graduate from high school with a minimum 2.5 GPA and at least a 90% attendance record. To get the Pittsburgh Promise, you also have to complete a FAFSA and FIA application and be enrolled as a full-time student. The reason why you have to complete that FAFSA and FIA application is Pittsburgh Promise is a last dollar scholarship. And what that means is Pittsburgh Promise is going to look at your tuition, fees, required book expenses, and then look at how much grant funding you've received, how much scholarship funding have you received, and is there any cost from the tuition, fees, or book expenses left, and then they would look to cover that. And you can apply for the Promise, or if you want any more information on the Promise, you can go to pittsburghpromise.org. Next slide, please. There's also another option for students with Pittsburgh Promise, and that's called the Pittsburgh Promise Extension Scholarship. What that is, that scholarship is available to students who maybe meet all of the requirements except the GPA requirement. So you've met the attendance requirement, you've met the residence requirement, but your GPA is between a 2.0 and a 2.49. So you may be able to apply for a Pittsburgh Promise Extension Scholarship if you have that criteria. The Extension Scholarship must be used at CCAC. No other institution can this be used at. So that's definitely a good resource for students. To be eligible for that and to continue to be eligible for that, you have to complete 18 credits per year at CCAC and maintain at least a 2.0 GPA. And then after you do complete a full year and meet the requirements for the extension scholarship, you can become fully Promise eligible. And again, if you want more information on the Promise or would like to apply for that, please go to pittsburghpromise.org. Next slide, please. Scholarships are a big source of funding for our students and for any student. CCAC, the Education Foundation scholarships, give out typically dozens of scholarships before each fall and for each fall and spring semester. And what's great about those are they're specifically for CCAC students. So they're not going up against, all the other populations of students for students that are going to other institutions. Where you can search for scholarships and complete an application is at ccac.awardspring.com. The application is going to ask you some general information, such as like your degree choice, your degree program that you're enrolled in, how many credits you've completed at CCAC, what your current GPA at CCAC is, and then ask you some general questions, sometimes such as where do you see yourself in 10 years? How can this funding help you with your education? Numerous scholarships out there. A lot of them are general scholarships for students, and some are for specific academic disciplines and majors for enrolled students. And you can view the criteria for each scholarship before applying for it, so that way you know what each scholarship is looking for. There's also outside scholarship opportunities that are available to students, and some common places where students will go to search for scholarships is fastweb.com, scholarships.com, and studentaid.gov. Many scholarships, again, want you to complete a FAFSA application, so it's important to do that. Next slide, please. The CCAC Financial Aid Office is here to help you with any general financial aid questions you have, or if you need assistance doing a FAFSA, we have different availability. Right now, we are on campus. We're trying to house at least one person at each campus on the financial aid department, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. We're also available by phone and email for a little bit of extended hours, Monday through Thursday from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Fridays from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and typically the second Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can email the financial aid office with any general questions you have or specific issues at financialaid@ccac.edu. You can call us at 412-237-2589. And if you want, if you need more specific assistance, let's say with doing a FAFSA and you want us to be able to see what you're doing, you can schedule a virtual appointment with us. And we have those available Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the web address below. And then you just want to choose, after you go to that web address, you want to choose the virtual financial aid option to book your appointment. Next slide. I'm going to turn this back over to Rena so that way we can answer any questions any of you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you to our participants for taking out time to be with us this late afternoon, early evening. If you have any questions, please do ask them at this time. Feel free to write your questions, perhaps in the chat or in the Q&A portion of this Zoom webinar, and we will address any questions that we receive. Again, thank you for being with us this evening. Do we have any questions from our guests? You're welcome, Pierce. Thank you and the URA for sending out this announcement to the constituents that you work with and participating in tonight's activity.
Rena, I just looked through. I see no chat questions or no Q&A questions. So I don't give a few more minutes. Something came in the chat here. Oh, thank yous.
Thanks for joining us, Pierce. Thanks for joining us, India, Carter, and thanks for joining us, the caller on the phone. I hope the information that you received was helpful. If you need to contact us for anything, feel free to email us at admissions@ccac.edu or give us a call at 724-325-6614. You can always find information on CCAC by going to our website at ccac.edu. Thank you for joining us this evening.